Absolutely.
Absolutely. It is time for the C3 pod. I want to welcome you guys in. I'm Steve Johnston, the current toy expert on history's Pawn Stars. You'll absolutely love this next guy. Is in the bottom left-hand corner. It is Mr. Paul Vato, everybody. That's
absolutely.
Right. Him and Kim Jong-un sharing the same hairdo today. I appreciate that. I'm sure he's got something to say later today in some type of press conference. I don't mean a press conference. I mean, implied upon you have no choice to watch conference. Something like that. Paul is with us in the bottom right-hand corner, Mr. Erik Amaya, the editor-in-chief of ComicCon.com. Is here as well, top right-hand corner, Mr. Brett Lawson, student of the game and just a legend in Las Vegas. When I say legend, I mean very well forgot about. It's a legend. No one believes it.
He's a myth.
You never know.
It's a myth.
He's a big deal in a small place.
Yes.
And speaking of big deals in small places, Mr. Brendan Allen up front and center there from ComicCon.com, the senior editor, writing all of his headlines in the future in Spanish. Looking forward to hearing all of those and seeing all of those. All I know is the best part of his lines are always see. So anyways, thank you for joining us on the C3 pod today, guys. How is everybody today?
Well, you just opened that up for everybody to talk all at once. So.
I did. I was trying to actually see if you guys would finally let Paul say something.
Go, Paul.
No. Hey, Paul. No, did you just call Bakersfield a small place, though?
Listen, what?
Because it's not. It's like the 6th biggest city in California by population. But go ahead.
Listen, guys, I have 2 speeds. I got slow and I got slower. So if you don't like this one, I can slow it down a bit.
He's got another shift.
Another gear, baby.
Reverse.
That's pretty funny. So, there's been, a ton of crazy things going on in our world, not just in the world of pop culture, but just in world in general. And it's funny because I'm seeing, a lot of different places. I'm seeing like the show scene really kind of change. And you're starting to see like actors, voice actors, comic book artists doing some random stuff. Like showing up at weird events that you wouldn't normally see them, and it's kind of funny. And then I started looking at it because I just had to. And we're not a political show, but I have to tell you, there's some people that show their political affiliations very heavily within their social media. And I'm sure you guys have seen this, especially Brendan over there spends as much time on Blue Sky as he does. And the reason being is because those are safe platforms, right? Just like X has become a safe platform to like say whatever you want and who cares what people think. But I'm watching this and I'm looking at this and I start looking at cities and regions that people are appearing in. And you really start to realize that some of these guests are picking cities that like their political interests are kind of in. You can see what they are. They're sharing stuff about the market or whatever it is. And I'm not going to drop the name, but what I will tell you is that I recently saw someone who extremely has been outspoken about everything going on in Minnesota. And then randomly, next post, I'll be in Minnesota making an appearance.
You know what though? I mean, that's super tracks though, because the last thing you want as an entertainer is a hostile crowd.
Right.
Because that can kill any momentum that you've got. But when you're talking about like people just showing up at random stuff, it's like, dude, that is how I have built my entire career in comics, is by writing about stuff that is peripheral to comics, but not comics exactly. So showing up at a car show, showing up at a concert, right? Like everybody's got their fanatical like interests or whatever. And when you can tap into the similarities between the fanatical interests or whatever, you start drawing a different crowd. And so it's like in that Venn diagram of where 2 different fandoms come together, that's a perfect place to be if you're a sports person who likes music, if you are a comics person who likes film or whatever. It's like finding where the commonality is, you have much more reach. And, to be honest, a lot of my articles, sometimes when they post up and it's like, here's a baseball music festival, which Innings Festival I'm going to in a few weeks, and I'm super excited about that. When you see that on a comics site, you're more likely to read it because why is this on a comics site? Versus if you see something about sports on a sports site, you look at the headline, you look at the picture, you scroll on.
And, that's a pretty interesting concept when you think about it, guys, because, it's funny, but sometimes you're right. The article stands out more when it's in a different venue. right? And you know, I've been known to catch my eye on something. They have that news window that's, you know, it's a widget that's on your iPhone, right? And like there's it, and that always has like 3 good stories and then 2 that are like pay to play stories that haven't even been edited, right? There's like always typos and stuff. It's great. But you know, the thing is like you see those things and like I'll get down the rabbit hole, like I'll see something and then I'll be, oh dang it. You know, Paul, do you you know, for the comedy side, do you think that like a lot of comedians will go into markets looking for like safe spaces anymore because of how it's changed how comedy is delivered?
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody wants a nice, warm crowd and receptive to what they say, but a lot of them will also say, I'll just won't play that, or I won't play colleges. But I also think a lot of times it's an excuse. It's like, oh, you can't say anything anymore. Well, maybe the stuff you're saying really isn't that funny. It's just mean-spirited and nobody wants to listen, and they're not paying, you know, the people talk with their wallets. Because I feel like you can still say almost anything. And maybe now, especially, what might save us is these roasts. I've been watching, you know, I like to watch the roasts, and these are modern roasts, not the original ones, which were brilliant, I thought. And then including the ones with like hosted by Jeffrey Ross, also brilliant. But the local level roasts, especially here in Chicago, that I've been peeping in on, I mean, they're vicious. They're saying things that I think most people would say, oh, you can't say that anymore. Well, they're saying it, and they're saying it to each other with love and getting away with it. So I think a lot of times it's just you just don't have something funny to say, but you're blaming it on not being able to say it anymore. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I mean, I guess that from a material standpoint, that would make a lot of science. You know, Brett, we've even seen it in the world of sports where people have kind of like changed their tone in certain areas and certain things. And there's also, it's funny because I was thinking about it last year. Look, Phillies Mets rivalry is as real as it gets in baseball. Right. Yeah. That's as real as a real rivalry gets. Like those cities truly hate each other, not just the teams. Right. And you haven't had much of the, you know, chit chat in the press of like talking smack like we used to have. You know, a closer going out there and saying, I hate this guy. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever it is. And we don't even have that stuff anymore because it's almost like, look, what was it last year? I can't remember who it was, but like, I think it was one of the hockey players posted something about something in Ukraine because he's Ukrainian. Yeah. Right? And then all of a sudden had like people showing up at his house and egging his house and, you know, doing all of these things to him because he just had a little bit of national pride, you know? And well, I mentioned these and no, Paul, I definitely want to, but I mentioned this just because, you know, it's funny to see the set and how people are aligning. And I can tell you, I know producing events, there are guests that we've invited to events that we've either had to have some type of security briefing with the venue in regards to if this happens because this person is outspoken. And I just think it's a unique take. And Paul, you wanted to interject something there?
Yeah, and I don't know if this interjection is worth it, but I remember when Jaromir Jagr maybe tried to get blackmailed by this, 18-year-old that he slept with, and you know he was probably already in his 30s or something, and I don't know if she was trying to honeypot him or what, but it kind of backfired on her because I think he posted the photo first, you know, and
get out in front of it.
He got in front of it. And he wasn't embarrassed that he was caught sleeping with an 18-year-old or I don't know, maybe 21 or whatever. But he just got out in front of it. So yeah, I don't know if that adds anything.
Well, in the media for the longest time, in the sports world at least, really just the entertainment world at large, if you were going to get jammed up in any way, shape, or form, there had to be some type of mole on the inside, or the paparazzi would get you. Now with social media, everyone in their own shape or form can be exactly that. So, I mean, there's a reason why even Derek Jeter, when he was playing, you know, at any kind of house party at the door, no cell phone, it goes in the hat, you know, or it goes in the bucket, rather. There was a reason why.
How Snoop Dogg does his grandkids' birthday parties? He shows up in big ass inflatables because the dude is 6'7" or something. He's ridiculously tall.
He's very lanky.
But like people will go to Snoop Dogg's family's events because they think they're going to see Snoop. And so what he'll do to be able to play with his grandkids and stuff is he'll show up in a big ass inflatable or like a furry costume or something like that, play with the kids, and then fuck off wherever he's going. And nobody even knew that Snoop was there, but his grandkids knew he was there to play with them. And I just think that's like the coolest thing. It's like, that is a very creative and practical way to like see your grandkids on their special day and not have to deal with the nonsense that goes with being one of the biggest recording stars of all time.
And it also says that, you know, that nonsense is always so omnipresent. The fact that these, you know, athletes and celebrities have to go through it. Now, a lot of times it's tools of the trade.
In their own kids' houses, though, is the thing.
I am with you.
Yeah.
And it's insane. And it just shows where we are. But at the same time, I mean, we've all been to sporting events, live events, you know, prize fights, professional wrestling, pay-per-views, and, you know, TV tapings and all that. And I mean, you going on, and so many people are just watching the event now like this. You know, Erik at Comic-Con, you know, Hall H. Everything's like this. And I do understand why, because one of the benefits of having something like this is because you can document so much of these cool things.
Nobody is going to watch your 4th of July fireworks display video off of your phone. So stop it.
You did, and you liked it.
But I'm completely with you, though. At the same time, think about how many people do that. I actually don't like to do it because, for one, fireworks shows never freaking look good on a camera anyway. And 2, it just gets tiresome doing this the whole time. And honestly, when you're working in the media, you're not even allowed to do that because now you're breaking all the, you know, the TV legalities and the broadcast rights. But ultimately, what it all goes back to is that we live our lives through this, and sometimes it's necessary and it helps us. Steve, you were handling business earlier today featuring something with this. I literally just got the notification just now that Cody Bellinger is re-signing with the Yankees. So in the sports media world, this is like an absolute lifesaver for me, or like a lifeline. So we do need it to a degree, but it also shows how it's altered everything in terms of how we perceive things.
But like when you sit there and you do that, though, so WWE events, for example, right? The first one they did in Saudi, everybody was filming like this in the front row. It's like, dude, you paid $20,000 for that seat, $20,000 to sit front row
to watch it through this.
You're not even in the moment. You're not there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so what are you going to do? You're going to watch it when you get home, all 6 hours of footage from the pre-show, the post-show, and all that? No, dude, just sit and enjoy your $20,000 seat. That is my car is what you're sitting in.
I think some people take the mentality, though, that they're taking the moment with them so they can have it forever.
Right.
I mean, there is an argument for that, but
it's a capture.
These things are filmed, right? These things are recorded. They're pressed out. Paul, you wanted to contribute something else again. And today is let Paul out of jail day, just so you guys know.
Spill, Paul, spill.
Yeah.
No, I get a very guilty pleasure, and I enjoy watching those videos.
And we're going to go to break now. No, I'm just joking.
Buy Vato coin of people in the inflatables, and then someone comes up and either farts or sprays fart spray into the inflatable. So I'd like to see that happen to Snoop.
You know what? Speaking of farts, going back and doing a rewatch of last week's episode, Paul, you have to mute your microphone when you're on assignment somewhere because the local food in Florida did not agree with you. And we heard all of your gastrointestinal distress over and over and over again during that show. It was 100% picked up by the microphone. Every 15, 20 seconds, there was some rude, just disgusting sounds coming out of your little corner there.
That truly was the greatest episode of all time. We had Al Jolson versus the Beatles, and we had Paul's, flatulence. Excellent.
I blame Manjaro. If you guys want me to lose weight, this is a work in progress. I blame Manjaro and metformin.
You know what I love though? He didn't try to deflect it all. He was just like, "Yeah, I did. I busted ass all over the episode, and this is why." But it's cool that you own it. So
acceptance is
a hell of an episode.
Imagine how Imagine how it smells in here.
I don't think any of us have. I don't think any of us have.
You're lucky you only heard.
Do you notice that we haven't heard from his mom since then? I'm just saying.
This is true. Mrs. Rodriguez is in the other room with the window open and the fans on.
It is a chemical warfare thing. And it, makes sense, but we won't mention that.
With every passing episode, Erik is regretting more and more in terms of taking on this show. You could see it in his face.
So, I'm kind of shifting gears here for a minute, but, we talked a little bit last week in regards to the Avengers Doomsday trailers and how those are essentially the directors have come out and said there's an order to put those in and they're actually part of the story. They're actually part of the storyline. I thought that was really cool. And then It was funny. There was an old, and I mean, when I'm talking about, it was an old video of Jon Favreau, and he was talking about Robert Downey Jr. being cast as Iron Man. But before that happened, there was like 2 steps to it. But one of the steps that there was he was actually going to be cast to play Doom in one of the Fantastic Fours back in like the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually auditioned for it. And then he ended up not getting the part, right? Ends up getting Iron Man. But you know what's hilarious? And when I tell you this, you guys are going to be like, wait, I want to go look. You know when they resurrected there's a statue of Victor Von Doom in one of those early Marvel things. There's a resurrected statue. For years, no one's noticed this until now. The likeness was Tony Stark. The likeness was Robert Downey Jr. He has literally been planned to be Doctor Doom since they started Iron Man. That is mind-blowing to me when you think about this. And you go look this up, you'll find it. I can't remember what movie exactly it was from. Because again, this was an interview that didn't really have like the clips and stuff like that. But sure enough, he was cast with every intentions to be Doom, supposedly, this entire time, because the statue likeness was of him.
This is one of those like George Lucas things where you see Luke and Leia kiss and you're all like, yeah, sure, he really had this plan the whole time all along, right?
Yeah.
Like you're always going to be skeptical.
Right.
But I will say this, we have a year to build up this movie, and stuff like that, Steve, that you bring up is going to start to come to light.
Right.
And, with that, it's worth talking about because a lot of times Marvel, I think, is kind of lucked into it. Like kind of what happens in, speaking of pro wrestling, WWE has written storylines that initially don't make sense, but they kind of are able to back themselves. You write yourselves into a corner, and sometimes that actually benefits them years down the road with the benefit of hindsight, right? It happens in the sports world all the time with certain quarterbacks. One of them is in the NFC Championship this coming weekend because we thought his career was a dud. And it turns out the narrative shifted, and now has a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So things pivot sometimes back to where they kind of were supposed to be all along, and maybe that is the case. And I will say, whether it's true or not, what you say, Steve, the whole new mask, same task thing that he said ultimately at Comic-Con, whether what you say or not is true, there is a reasoning behind that. So there is a reason why Tony Stark is Dr. Doom.
So it turns out that it was from the Fantastic Four 2005.
Well, Brendan must have
it's not true. It's not true. So the thing is that the timeline is off. So it is an incredible coincidence.
Yeah.
Well,
when you look at the statue,
timeline off though, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah,
how
because I'm looking at
the timeline is off.
Can I tell you how the timeline is off? Would you let me finish my sentence for once?
I may, but that may be selective listening over
the model
3 minutes
for the statue is Julian McMahon, and the casting was done before RDJ expressed any interest or whatever. Like the timeline, the actual real life timeline of when the prop was made versus when RDJ auditioned and all that stuff doesn't work. It is an incredible coincidence, and it is fun that when you look back at the original, you go, oh, it was that's the guy that looks like him, and that's great because they didn't have to like go back and digitally alter it to make it fit into anything or whatever. But the truth is more interesting to me that they hired this model, Julian McMahon, to model for it, and they cast him and did all the stuff, and it ended up working out that RDJ looks a lot like this dude when he's in the makeup. So
I'm just saying that it's not impossible to think that one of the reasons
it's not impossible if you completely ignore the laws of physics and time space,
right? Because people will
reality
do that all the time. You have the Disney artists
burn
put
a dying star to its core to power the TARDIS to go back to before he even auditioned.
Did
with
you
the
just
knowledge that he's
Doctor Who? Because I just completely glazed over.
Well, that's cool because you're gonna be completely absent for segment 2 then because that's all we're talking about.
I'm aware. Anytime that there is a show upcoming that has Doctor Who in it, Brendan's putting it on the show.
Here's the one thing I will say. We also have to remember that initially it wasn't even supposed to be Dr. Doom as the big bad. If Jonathan Majors makes some better life decisions, we're talking about Kang the Conqueror right now, because that was the original plan. Not saying we don't see Doom down the road, but that was going to be the case. It was always, even if, and Eric, because I know you probably have a great point, but even if they were going to pivot somehow from Kang, the reason why they announced Doom in 2024 was because of the Jonathan Majors thing. Unless Eric has an inkling that they were going to change it all along.
Wait, hold on. And now Insider Eric has info to share.
Yes.
I'm inclined to believe that Kang was always a red herring. That you'd get to the end of the Kang Dynasty movie and Doom would appear and kill him.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But do you think we still would have gotten Kang Dynasty instead of Doomsday?
The Kang movie, but at the end, it would have turned out that the real ultimate bad guy was Doom.
So Secret Wars
comic that the movie's based on, is Doom uniting all those realities, right?
And I think what Eric is saying is kind of what every fan, what every YouTuber who covers this stuff ultimately really wanted. Every podcast, there's been a lot of fan theories, but when we thought Jonathan Majors was going to be the guy, that Secret Wars was somehow going to always lead back to God Emperor Doom, because as Eric just said, it all goes back to the Jonathan Hickman comic from 10, 11 years ago. So that makes total sense. But either way, in terms of the actual casting, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was definitely the way they kind of backdoored out of it. And here's the statue that Eric pulls up. And I mean, this is what you're talking about, Steve?
Yeah.
That's the one.
But
it's also a big departure from the classic Doom, because you see that's his skin that's got the rivets in it, and he's not wearing the classic Doom. So they did some things. This was like a concept piece that they hired somebody to sit in the studio to get the 3D mapping of his face and stuff, and he just happens to look, especially from that angle, and I'll bet you from a straight angle or from a high angle, it doesn't look the same.
I feel like this is one of those props now that if you could get it, it would be worth just obscene amounts of money, not because it had a pivotal part in the movie or anything like that. It's just the lore, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And it could very well be. Well, speaking of lore, when we come back after the break,
Eric,
we're going to be discussing. Go ahead.
Yeah, Eric had a point.
Sorry, I'll reset that, Brett. Anytime we ever want to wrap a segment,
the
not to end, take it over. Brett will wrap it from here.
When it's a bunch of yappers like Brennan and myself and even Paul, fine. Eric has something. His eyebrows went up. We got to give him his due. Sorry, Steve. I hijacked it even more.
There is a non-zero chance that they'll play with this, though. Whether or not it was really meant to be RDJ or not,
right?
There's always the possibility that they'll make.
Look at how long we've talked about it already.
Exactly.
They'll do a viewpoint out a window where you see the top of the statue, and everybody will be like, "Look! I think that's a statue," and everybody will stopping 100%. The frame and trying to take over it. So Brett's going to send us to break. Brett, take it away.
Absolutely. Great first segment, guys. But on the other side, we're going to dive into the trade, the hobby that Steve will so profoundly analyze for you all. We'll also get some great insights from Brett and myself, Eric, the producer, and maybe Paul Vato. I can't tell if he's awake or asleep right now. It's all on the other side of the C3 pod. And be sure to check us out on Patreon in between the breaks for more exclusive content.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
And welcome back to the C3 pod. We are back, and just in time in his chair, Mr. Brendan Allen found a way to get his butt in a chair. Well done, sir.
I love how you guys talk like I'm not wearing an earpiece.
We're talking like you don't exist, but that's because Paul actually sent a text message out and said, Brendan doesn't exist. He's just a figment of your imagination. We want to first off thank our friends at Lava Packs for their continued support of the C3 pod. Make sure you stop by at lavapacks.com. Grab yourself a drip pack. You can get Disney. You can get Bo Jackson's Battle Arena if you want to get into the sports side of things. Pokemon. You've got Labubu. I know that's Paul's favorite. But, go on over to Lava Packs. Check it out. Grab yourself a mystery pack and take a shot at pulling some type of cool mystery card. Plus, they come in exclusive slabs. They've got their own cases they do and stuff. Very cool. So, again, thank you to our friends at Lava Packs and Drip Packs at lavapacks.com. So, there's a big show that's going to happen. Well, it's big in this world. And what I mean by this world is in the world of the two Comic-Con.com folk that are on here. Because apparently the biggest franchise in the world is Doctor Who, and it's going to be on the West Coast. And Brendan Allen's got a lot more information to tell us about the largest franchise in their world.
Well, I don't know about the largest, but it is definitely a very long-running show. This is the 36th annual North American Doctor Who celebration. It's called Gallifreyans. Takes place 6th through 8th of February at the Marriott Los Angeles Airport. But they've got some incredible guests. They have a lot of actors from the show. One of the doctors is going to be there. The 5th Doctor, Peter Davison, is going to be there. They've got companions like Freema, who are showing up, Millie Gibson, Sarah Sutton, Fraser Hines, Ian McNeice. They've got TV writers Rob Valentine, Matt Fitton, Barbara Hambley, Bob Miller. They've got comics creators, and actually that's where this came up for me, is Jodie Hauser writes the Doctor Who comics. She's going to be there. And Christopher Jones is the artist. They've got screenwriters, producers, creature actors. And it's one of those things where it is a very niche fandom, but because it's such a big show, because it's such a big deal worldwide, what is the reference of Gallifrey 1? Why don't you just say that on camera? What is Gallifrey? Paul Vato, go ahead.
No one gives me a second to talk. That's why.
Oh, yeah. Come on. It's Paul's Day to spill. It's Paul's Day to spill.
Gallifrey is the planet that the Time Lords are from, and the Doctor is one of the Time Lords. So he is Gallifreyan, and Gallifreyans look human, but they are not. They have two hearts. They're physiologically different, and they can bend time and space. So there's that.
I'm gonna make a point really quick because I think Paul, you'll recognize this very well. So you said again, give me the description of them again, Brendan. It was the two hearts. What else was it?
I don't remember. Like
You
you're
just-
listening. What?
No one cares. Move on.
Well, no. The point
You
behind
asked the
it
question.
was-
What's Gallifrey? It's a planet.
It seemed like Brendan was just describing himself.
Two hearts.
So-
Yeah, that's me.
And so I'm listening to that, and I'm like, well, wait, is he? No. Did they build the
I'm a
character
Time Lord?
around him, or
Is that
has he
what it
built his character around them?
So they've got activities and meetups and things planned. I want to blast through this part so we can get to the last part, because the last part is the most interesting for me. But they do things like ribbon exchanges. So I guess that what happens at this particular event is people bring ribbons that they have custom made or that they hand make or whatever that show that they wear. It's kind of like the Boy Scouts trading pins and badges, but they trade ribbons, and they have different nights and different times during the day where you meet up to trade ribbons. They have In-N-Out burger runs. There's gaming, there's interviews, there's panels, cosplay meetups, autographs and photo ops, and then they have vendors there that are selling toys, collectibles, books, props. There's a lot of props that come out of the BBC for these types of shows, and you might end up with a finger from this episode or whatever of a Cyberman or whatever. So there's all that cool stuff. But one of the panels, Mr. Erik Amaya, is coming up on the 6th from 3 to 4. It's called Waiting for Gallifrey. What's this about, sir?
So it's going to be a discussion of the wilderness years, which was the period of time when there was no new Doctor Who on television, right? But it survived through novels, comics,
reruns,
audio dramas, all this other ancillary material. And it kind of feels like we're heading towards another wilderness time. So we're going to be discussing what that's going to look like. Are we stuck with Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor? Is Billie Piper actually the Doctor at this point? We're going to be doing spin-off media with her. It's a lot of guesstimating and possibly hand-wringing, because it's been a long time since we haven't had Doctor Who on television. Mm-hmm. And now the fear is that we're going back to those days. And how do we keep the show alive if it isn't on TV?
Well, I think you have some of these properties that have had these issues, right? I think of Power Rangers, right? That the Power Rangers just haven't had enough new content, right? So you have a ton of fan films and a ton of fan stuff. So I would expect that you'll have some creators and or directors, filmmakers out there that ultimately look at this gap as an opportunity, right? We see it with Star Wars too, although Star Wars does happen a little more prevalently, but you do see it there.
It's the hard, no doubt, and it's the hardest with adapted works. That's what Game of Thrones got kind of in the trap, because Game of Thrones got so popular, but the storyline that they're based off of, that they're adapted off of, technically to this day still isn't finished. So in a way,
it's never going to be. It's never going to be.
100%. At this point,
there's no way he could write it
No,
because it's going to be influenced by the way that the show ended. So
100%.
there's no way he can write it now in the way
Right.
that he had intended without the show influencing it. If he writes it different than the show, then he looks like an asshole. And if he writes it the same as the show, he looks like an asshole. He can't win.
And there's too much ancillary material now. You have like 2 or 3 spin-offs now. So now you have all these different like screenwriters writing backstories and expositional aspects of his narrative, his mythology that he's not even a part of ultimately. At least George Lucas actually gave it to Disney, right? I mean, whether you say sold out or not, as if he needed more money, but he gave it to Disney, whether we all regret it or not, that's a different topic for a different day. But ultimately with original works, he's okay. With adapted works, I mean, Erik, you know this, with Tolkien, that sometimes is, the conundrum because there's only so much material. So what do? You stretch out The Hobbit, which is a children's novel, into 3 movies. You go off the backstory that is really thousands upon thousands and thousands of years of, the first and second age of Middle Earth, and you try to condense that into 2 seasons of Rings of Power, maybe 3 seasons, who knows what the future is, right? So it's one of those things where like you're trying to kind of fill the gap with stuff that exists, but isn't necessarily meant to be stretched out in that medium of film or even television to make up for that. And because of that, like Steve says, you get fan-made films. And now, because of that, that's so impactful and people want that. They're in such high demand. Peter Jackson's adapting The Hunt for Gollum, which is like a hugely successful fan film that is now going to be a major motion picture.
Right.
What's interesting about the Doctor Who fandom, I think, in these instances is that because there have been so many iterations of the Doctor, they're on 15, 16 Doctors now, Erik? How many?
Yes, it is 15 or 16 because we still can't confirm whether or not Billy Piper is the 16th
Right.
Doctor.
So when you sit there and you look at that, the regeneration of the Doctor actually came about because the original guy who was playing Doctor Who, his health and his mental status was not allowing him to continue the role. So they had to come up with a way to continue the show without starting over. And so they basically had the dude die and then regenerate into another version of himself. So the Doctor became the Doctor, but it was a different body, different mannerisms, different clothes and stuff like that. So they've done this now every time they've had to recast. But the thing that's great about that is because they travel through time and space and because they have all these different bodies, when they went through the first gap, there was all kinds of radio programs and books and things that were happening. And I feel like, with comics and with graphic novels and things, it's another place that they can explore right now because people are kind of getting tired of the new Doctors and the idea of somebody coming along because the last 3 have kind of been mixed, you know what I'm saying? Like people either love them or they hate them or whatever. So I think a break is not a bad thing. And I think that there are lots of ways with the radio programs, with audiobooks, with comics, with graphic novels that they can continue telling stories from all the Doctors that we love and for Doctors that we maybe haven't seen yet, and play with some ideas to see where the show is going to come or where it's going to go if it does ever come back.
I mean, one interesting thing this time around is so there's a writer named Rob Sherman who wrote a couple of episodes in the new series, and something he pointed out is that this time around we don't have a Doctor right now, and last time around it was literally. We had the 7th Doctor, we had Sylvester McCoy, so they just kept telling stories with that character and his companion and whatever. And then in 96, they did a TV movie with Paul McGann, and he was, officially the 8th Doctor. So they switched all of the ancillary initiatives to that version of the Doctor, and they just kept going until 2005. Where this time around, we don't have a face for the Doctor to kind of plan what this looks like during a hihiatus. So,
but in comics right now, we have comics that are being written for 4 or 5 different Doctors right now concurrently.
Yeah,
that are out there.
But the key difference here is that there was always this sense of forward momentum because there was a person who was the Doctor. We just kept telling stories with that Doctor until the show eventually came back. This time around, we don't have a face. We literally have a question mark this time. And what does that mean if we're kind of stuck only doing, looking backwards, right? Which he got a lot of stick for it. When I actually read the full quote, I'm like, no, that's actually a legit concern. Like how do we do this if the Doctor currently doesn't have a face? Like that's a tough thing. And that's something that I actually want to do in the panel is talk about what do we do if we get to the end of the 2026 Christmas special and the Doctor still doesn't have a face? Like, what does that mean?
Now, I do love the fact that you referenced referenced the fact that they call it the wilderness period, right? Because that's interesting because it's like very vague, right? And it's kind of like when you think Star Wars and like the different like parts of the universe that people can come from, and they'll take an entire timeline that's concurrent with another timeline and just move it over. Now, we know that you're real in depth on Doctor Who, and you're definitely someone that's knowledgeable in this by all means. But who else on the panel really stands out to you? Like what, your panelists? Because I don't know a lot about your panelists.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. We have Heather. Ooh, I'm going to screw up this pronunciation, I bet. Berberet, probably?
I would go Berberet with that, yeah.
Berberet, right? A psychologist for the Free the Squee podcast, which, having that look on things and kind of the psychology of what it's like to be a fan when there is no show, that's going to be cool. We have Matt Fritton, who wrote episodes for doctors as varied as Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, Chris Eccleston, and David Tennant. Like that's a lot. And I think some of that's also Big Finish audios, which a lot of the fandom is sustained by the fact that they have these audio dramas that this company called Big Finish, they release 6 a month. It's a lot. And it is, every doctor that they can get into a recording booth. We also have David Whittam, who's a London-based copy editor. I don't know too much about him, but we'll see. And Ian Winterton from Cutaway Comics, which, the comics perspective, because there is never not a Doctor Who comic.
It's kind of interesting
even
that
if it's just in the Doctor Who magazine. There's always a Doctor Who comic.
And it's interesting because it's a very array of guests, right? That all kind of have their wheelhouse and specialty. And it's interesting to see that because a lot of times when people build panels, they try to build it as all like close one topic. And this is actually built, quite a bit different. Now, Paul, yes, I know you've asked the question like 3 times, so we will tell you. This is not P. Davidson. It is Peter Davison. Okay.
Davison. Very, very important.
Yes, they are different people. One of them was on Saturday Night Live, not any longer, but was. Okay. So I just want to clarify that with you, Paul. Do you have any other questions about the Doctor Who?
Well, yeah. I mean, I am available if they are looking for more panelists. I mean,
always.
I know that they ride around in a Tardo or something, but yeah, I mean, I'm there to let.
Oh, I have a TARDIS.
What?
I have a TARDIS. Where is it?
You have a TARDIS?
It's like somebody got a Funko Pop TARDIS and they gave it to me. I think it's in my bedroom.
Yeah, my TARDISes are all elsewhere, so.
I'm sorry, Brendan. Your TARDIS is in your bedroom.
I want to build a TARDIS. I want to have it someday. I'm going to have a big ass house, and there's going to be a movie screening room in the house. The door to the movie screening room is going to be a TARDIS, and when you open it up, it's going to go into the room because TARDISes are bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. So I've got this amazing illusion planned with no idea or technical knowledge on how to make it happen. I just know that if you're rich, you can make stuff happen like your childhood dream of having a TARDIS lead to a movie theater.
If that door opens and you don't hear execute, then it doesn't count. Go ahead, Paul.
Exterminate?
There we go.
How did you get your wife to agree to separate bedrooms, Brandon?
What's that? I snore and I kick and I punch a lot. And so, yeah.
This guy's domestic violence 101 every night.
Sounds fun.
I get kicked and punched a lot, though, too.
No, it sounds like you do the kicking.
He's protecting himself.
Let's roll this back 8
She'll have
seconds.
arguments in her sleep, and I'm like, are you
himself.
okay? And she's like, oh, yeah. You just did this awful thing in my dream. So
I'm really starting to worry about Brendan.
I popped it for it.
Yeah, she takes out her dreams on him. I totally get it. That's what Paul does to Brett.
But one thing I do want to say about Gallifrey as a convention is that because it is fan organized and fan run, it feels different than any other show I go to. Like it's just it's very I'm going to use the word intimate. It's very intimate. Like you do get a surprising amount of time with talent.
It's probably candid, right? It has to be like very
candid. Yeah,
immersive, right?
Yeah, to the point where even in the panel descriptions, they sort of encourage us to keep it as loose as possible so that it can be more of a conversation.
It's less of a showcase and more of an experience in a way.
Yeah, because ultimately they're not trying to sell you something. Like it's weird, even though there is a dealer's room, it's like there's that. But
Right.
anyone who's on a panel, they're not really trying to sell you anything. So,
But it's a dealer's room. It's not the entire floor. Like most conventions, the entire floor is a sales floor.
Right.
But what I was going to say is when I was going through the descriptions of stuff, it's like, yeah, we're all meeting in the hotel lobby to get in a big van to go to In-N-Out. It's like, yes, that is a very intimate situation you've got there with
Let's
12
go.
people could just go, let's go get burgers. You know?
Hell yeah. Bonded.
and oddly enough, if you ever wanted to get a photograph with, I don't know, a couple years ago it was Billy Piper, right? Photographs not crazy expensive like they are at certain other shows. You know, we're talking under 3 digits, and like from what I've seen elsewhere, it's like this is a pretty good deal if you're into this very niche thing.
Right.
When you look at these smaller conventions, a lot of times you'll have 1 big star or 2 big stars and then a bunch of like supporting whatever. But when you look at the list of celebrities here, because I don't know all the writers and stuff, but I can look down this list of celebrities and go, that is one of my favorite companions. That's one of my favorite companions. That's one of my favorite companions. Like they've got, 12 people here that have legitimate credits, long-standing credits, and that are fan favorites that are all going to be in the same place at one time. And that doesn't happen with a lot of the smaller shows. This is one hotel that's putting this on, which means that, they've got their convention center or whatever, but it's probably like 4 or 5 big rooms, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very intimate sounding. And this is one of the ones too. I was like, oh, can I get a press pass? That's just in LA. They don't do press passes because it's such a small show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it is interesting that everybody except maybe the invited guests has to buy in. And
I love it.
That kind of works, and it also kind of keeps the show like coverage is basically a handful of Doctor Who vlogs, me if I decide to write it up, and Doctor Who magazine. You know, and that's it.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. I've enjoyed it the last couple of years. It also is winding down. The last show is going to be in 2029. But the company that kind of organizes all of the talent from London or from the UK to come over, they're going to start their own separate show at the same hotel.
So how long is this one? How long has this one been going on?
This 30 years minus, so maybe 37 years.
Okay, so it'll be damn near 4 decades by the time they shutter this version of it. Essentially, wow.
Yeah,
this is the 36th annual, and I think it's like the 12th or the 13th in LA because it used to be a cruise. So it was a cruise that now is, centered at this hotel in Los Angeles that is now evolving into something else, which is also interesting because when you sit there and you look at the different iterations of it, that's very much the theme of the show. Is that it's the same character but with different motivations and different drives because times change and needs change. And Paul had something to say there.
Are you getting a lot of people coming in from the UK, or is it mostly just Americans that happen to be fans and it's easier to get to LA do they do something like this in the UK, where I assume is a bigger fan base?
Right. Attendance is mostly US based people where the talent is British, right? And they do have, I don't think they have a dedicated Doctor Who convention in the UK, but
they used to have.
But there is a comic convention basically every weekend. So, the Doctor Who actors are constantly doing signings and talks and stuff. So,
what was the exhibit they had permanently? What was the exhibit they had permanently in Cardiff though? They had a Doctor Who something there.
What was that
was
called?
like
Doctor Who Experience.
Right. So those of you who don't watch the BBC, everything is filmed in Cardiff. It's all the same sets, and there's only like 12 actors that rotate around to all the different shows. But you can look at the sets of Doctor Who and the props because it's all the same production company. So there's a spacesuit that famously has been worn in Doctor Who and like 16 other different shows that have all been filmed there, and was in Star Wars and in a bunch of other stuff. But like, it's the Bosk suit. Right.
Yeah,
correct.
It is the Bosk suit. Yeah.
And then they had an exhibit set up, but I think they shut it down, which is like, dude, that's like the
shut
only
down
reason I would go to Wales.
For nearly 10 years now, I want to say that exhibit has been down. And a lot of that stuff is actually in San Diego right now because the Comic-Con Museum has that educational Doctor Who exhibit, which is actually a lot of fun. I have done it twice at this point, and it is cool, but that's where you want to go if you want to see those props. For us at Gallifrey, it's a little bit more obscure and custom things, and I'm actually looking to buy this year, but we'll see.
They replaced the Doctor Who Experience was a permanent exhibit. It's now closed, but there's now a Doctor Who Cardiff walking tour that you could get the the sound file for and walk around town to all the spots where they've filmed different scenes.
It's going to be a fun convention because whenever you get ones that are more themed and have a smaller group, they tend to have the fanatics at it. So therefore, the elevation and the experience actually comes through on the attendee side. So you're actually getting that from it. And that's kind of what my experience has been over the years with these type of events, is that when it is a smaller congregated event. In fact, I would argue, look, we produce the Diecast Super Convention, and that's very niche in its lane that it's in. And because of it, when you're there, you're engulfed into people that is what they do, what they're into. Or I even recall when we did PokeCon and we had the Gross Card Con as part of it, it was a really good example of like when you went into the gross card area, like you knew you were somewhere else. Like it felt that way. The fans were fanatical about it and everything. And that's what's great about these type shows. I think these are going to be bigger plays long term. You're going to see a lot more of these shows being successful because of the fact that it's very expensive to get to the big ones, and all of those things that, are within the expenditure costs, locations, travel, all of these things that, add up for these events. People are going to pick and choose, more niche, specific interest stuff that they're into. And, an event like this definitely has a place to stand. And, as much as I joked about the Doctor Who thing, just because it is a very UK thing, right? It still has a huge following, huge market. I would say it probably is in the level of rivaling Star Trek at this point, as far as like the fandom in the United States of it, right?
Well, it used to be a very niche thing, but they did something really smart when they brought it back initially, and that's having Christopher Eccleston. They brought some really established UK actors and things that are already established in the United States, and they relaunched it with a world talent, not just a UK talent. And then, Billie Piper was the companion, and Billie Piper was really big in the UK. So they were like pandering to the UK market, but also to the US market, because we know Christopher Eccleston, he's played some fantastic roles in the US film industry. And so by tying it together that way, you've got a much bigger fan base in the United States, I think, than you even had in the original runs when they were showing these on Saturday mornings and stuff here.
Well, it's also easier for people to find content and find their information. In fact, on that note, you can find us on Spotify. And of course, don't forget to stop by the Patreon and check that out. We have footage and content that is not on the show that you can pick up from there. And I'm sure we'll continue a conversation like this after the break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the new comics that are coming out. And you have to check it out because this week isn't full of number ones. It's just full of a bunch of really good books. So that'll be us right on the other side of the break here on the C3 Pod.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comicon.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comicon.com.
And welcome back to the C3 Pod. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at the Nerd Bar, Las Vegas at the Neonopolis. That's at the end of Fremont Street, right there at Las Vegas Boulevard. Stop by, see them on the second floor. Always have cool stuff going on. Make sure you stop by. See Johnny and the team over there at the Neonopolis at the Nerd Bar. Lots of cool stuff going on. Check their socials for all the announcements on the different events they do, including micro wrestling and a whole lot more. So make sure you stop by. See them on your next trip to Vegas. We appreciate their support of the C3 Pod. We have quite a few books to go over this week, and I want to get into it because, look, as soon as we start talking about this first one can kind of spin into a whole bunch of stuff. So, Brendan, take us through the new comics for this week.
All right, the first one for this week is Absolute Wonder Woman number 16. And the reason why I pulled this one in is because it starts a new story arc. And if you look right there on the cover, it says a new story starts here. Not enough publishers put these on new story arcs because I believe that you really could bring in a lot more people who are trying to get into comics if you told them this is where you start, and not enough publishers do it. So I'm proud of DC for doing it right here. This starts a new story arc called Season of the Witch, where Diana confronts Zatanna. The Season of the Witch arc begins here. After her exploits in the Area 41 maze, Diana has resolved to not let her personal mission overwhelm the one she was sent to the surface world to fulfill. A new threat has emerged in Gateway City, and it turns out the best thing to send to kill Wonder Woman is another witch. Zatanna is here, and Diana's life will never be the same.
Obviously, we talk about the Absolute line all the time. There's a ton of buzz around Absolute Wonder Woman now. Yeah. It's starting to get that buzz that I saw the buzz happening with Batman.
It should.
Where you're getting the casual comic book fan that maybe doesn't even collect much DC or anything. They're now getting into this storyline. I think Martian Manhunter will follow it. But this whole Absolute line is just really taken off. This whole new story arc, the whole new, character arc on people, their origin stories, all of these stuff being new has really driven this too. Look, there's no argument at this point that I think it's pretty fair. And Erik, you'll probably tell me this. I mean, this is arguably the Absolute line is the number one line in comics right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
absolutely.
It's
lower third.
Right. Oh, I should do the lower third.
Yes,
absolutely. It's
Paul's not there, so take that space.
Yeah. It's such a phenomenon, and it's so shocking considering what a shambles the organization around DC Comics can be like sometimes.
Right.
That for them to actually get their publishing ducks in a row is astonishing. And I came to comics with DC, so I'm happy to see things actually working after what feels like 25 years of it not working.
And that's the thing. There's like this period of dormancy, and it's not. There have been times in the last 30 years, or maybe even this 15, 20 years, where Marvel hasn't even done anything that exceptional. It's just that by comparison, or if you by direct contrast, rather, it looks a lot better than it actually is because they don't have much competition.
Consistency.
This is a great way, but this is a great way to actually have an identity that can not even necessarily compete with Marvel, just could actually bring some life, some juice to DC. It gives it a shot in the arm, and it very much resembles what Marvel, as we talked about in the show before, tried to do with the Ultimate line. And what did Marvel do with the Ultimate line? It made Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and the X-Men a priority. Those are their big three brands. What are the big three brands in DC? Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I know some would argue that you could throw the Flash in there, but either way, Wonder Woman is in the mix. They're smart to make this a priority if they're going to make the Absolute line across the board, aside from Batman, as Brennan just said, consistent.
Well, we have Absolute Batman just had the meeting with Diana for the first time in the Absolute universe, right? So you've got Batman and Wonder Woman, finally meet each other. Yep. So, these things are happening now. They're doing an incredible job with the art. Like, I love this cover. I think it's very cool. I love the fact it's got, the face in the background, and the color set is very cool. And this has been pretty consistent on the Absolute covers. They've used a lot of shadings over like color changes, right? So the tone changes, not necessarily, all these bright, colors, which is quite the opposite. I think, you see a lot of time in the Marvel side, and it's like, it's a Venom book, but the tongue is the big thing because it's this big giant red, on a black background type thing. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool to see that they're taking this approach. They've got some great art. Now we have, I think we have, what is it? The 616 Comics Ivan Talvera Virgin variant. Let's take a look at that one. This is just very cool, and it's a callback to Absolute One for Wonder Woman because she's on these. Look, they're dead Pegasus, right? And like one of the very first panels is her like coming from hell, right? And so they call it back here to kind of give you back her origins of like, hey, just because her story has been now out and about, a more familiar space, she came from somewhere that you don't know a lot about. It's a little mysterious. And so with Zatanna coming in, I think that'll be, and two, and this is my take on this one, and I'm sure, you guys may have your own. This is the most sex appeal style Zatanna that I've seen. They've always tried to make her sexy,
which is that right? That's
big and tall and awkward and whatever, right?
Yeah, long legs.
They're shooting for the sex appeal here for sure.
Yeah, and that's a great point because Zatanna's one that you could tell they've always tried to keep up with the times of the sexy trends of the times, but at the same time, Zatanna's only featured enough to where she's only relevant so often where that kind of gets blurred into the the past because you just kind of nothing. I'm not going to say nothing of her stands out, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to pick those parts out. But like Steve says, this is just going full blown, full blast. The second you see it, you think modern day sex appeal. You kind of just think universal, everlasting, evergreen sex appeal, right?
And this is actually 3 covers that are put together. So 616 got Ivan Talavera to do several versions of this. So there's one that's just Zatanna and you don't have Diana at the bottom. There's one that's just Diana. And then there's this one with trade dressing. So it's one of those things where it's like each one of the covers has its own merit. This is the one that's mashed together without the trade dressing. This one looks really good, but they all look really good. And it's one of those things where you almost like look at the creator's process and you go, I have this much space. What do I put in it? And then see, like, does it work with these pieces or this piece or this piece, whatever. And then they ended up just releasing all of them and they all look fantastic.
It's cool. It's cool to see Zatanna get some shine.
I also appreciate the way that they found a way to absolute her look too. Because her look is so simple generally. I mean, it's a great design, right? It's why it's barely changed in 50 years. But this is like a really interesting way to update that style, I think.
You have a whole new set for cosplayers too. And that's a whole nother angle of this where you're going to get, cosplayers that are going to portray these characters a little more often. And they are significantly different than what they've had to say, Well,
and this is, as far as her look goes, this is a very 90s look with the bare midriff and stuff like that, but somehow it's still modern. Like it's one of those things where you look at all of those styles with the waist chain and the bare midriff and the tube top and then the denim jacket or whatever. And you're like, yeah, I was in 7th grade when that came out, but it does look very like updated.
Right.
And on the standard cover, she is also wearing a fishnet top, right? Which, you kind of have to keep the fishnets somewhere on her. So.
And I think that's what they're trying to accomplish here too. Even if you look at it, because if you look at her hands on this one, you can tell that the gloves don't have it as well, just like the other one. So there's Brendan getting into his style guides, right? Because you can tell that they've definitely created a style guide for her and how they want her to look. And it's being consistent across these covers. I love this cover. I think this is done really well. This is going to be an easy sell cover because it's got all the things that you look for in this type cover. One, it's got sex appeal. 2, it's got that little bit of mysteriousness with Wonder Woman coming, on the Pegasus. And then on top of it, it's got great like dark blanks places for signatures, especially, your silvers, your golds, your bright, neon colors are going to look incredible on this cover. This is going to be a cover that, you're going to see Ivan Talavera is going to get a lot of people bringing this cover and being like, hey, I want this signed. I want this signed. Which is cool because it brings some of these DC artists that maybe don't have the followings that we see with some of the Marvel artists and, some of the top end DC artists. And when you have a platform like this in the Absolute line, you're going to be able to draw interest to some of those newer artists. So it's a nice way for DC to make sure that they're also giving not just the same 4 artists every, release or putting out the covers. They're using the variety of artists and it shows in the quality of work that's going in. So I love seeing it. I think that's great. On to the next one, little bit of Transformers crossover. I don't know. G.I. Joe 18. Tell us about that one, Brendan.
So we speculated about who the big character reveal was going to be, and it turns out that it is Roadblock. This is a standalone Night Force covert op. The iconic Roadblock makes his Energon universe first appearance, but will he be the newest recruit of Lady J and Flint's Night Force, or will he join a different group?
I've had this opinion for quite some time in regards to the G.I. Joe line. I just don't think that their storyline has been great. I really wish that they would just get back to what the real G.I. Joe fan is into, because I can tell you, as owning a comic shop, I don't have any kids that come in and be like, do you have G.I. Joe?
Have you had that in the last 2 decades?
No, I mean, for the most part, you don't.
Right.
There has been periods of time.
Maybe
there have been periods of time where I have seen people gravitate towards certain parts of it, but not necessarily, be all in on G.I. Joe, especially the younger kids. But they were developing and creating a good following for the G.I. Joe line. And what they saw was, because it originates with Hasbro, that the interest in the line went back to the original character space, not, and I hate to say it, but not Marvin's Melt standing on top of a ice cream truck, like with I guess, what is this? A grilled cheese food truck? Like, right. And again, I don't know if the storyline's working. Apparently they keep it rolling. So apparently it's working. I'm not really sure.
The other cover is better for Roadblock, I think. And that's a 1 in 25 incentive variant that's done by Lucas Meyer.
And this gives that feeling, kind of going back to the origin of G.I. Joe, right? This is a little bit more of that original, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the storyline is going to fit that. And the storylines have just kind of been all over the place. There hasn't been a lot of like real consistency.
Yeah, no continuity.
And because of that, I just don't see a lot of G.I. Joe fans being like, oh, I have to make sure I grab every G.I. Joe book that comes out because I can't miss something. Just not.
It feels like to me that with the G.I. Joe crowd, you've got people who follow, you've got people that follow the team and then people that follow the individual players. And I think that like with G.I. Joe, it's one of those franchises where if you're really into Road Pig, you're going to pick up every title that's got Road Pig in it. If you're really into like the Cobra storylines or whatever you get. So it's one of those things that it's big enough and niche enough for each individual. Like some people just follow the ninjas, right? And you just want the silent issues with the ninjas in them or whatever. So it's one of those things where it's like, this looks a lot like the toy. I remember that stupid gun. So this is playing into nostalgia a lot. The other cover is kind of cute and cheeky. It's like a Roadblock with, like you said, a grilled cheese sandwich thing or whatever. But as somebody who is in my late 40s who grew up with the toys and stuff like that, I would buy this one over the other one any day of the week.
But you're not going in to buy it. That's my argument.
But if I saw the cover and I was feeling nostalgic, I would grab this one.
Like it would have to be perfect time, perfect place, right in front of you that you would choose to get it. And that to me is just too minor of a crowd.
Well, I have a question too. When you've got a creator who has done everything in the franchise, he's been an editor, a writer, and an artist, and he's so tied to the franchise, why is anybody but Larry Hama writing these books right now? Nothing against Joshua Williamson, but when Hama is still actively involved in the franchise, why is he not writing every book?
I mean, I think for him is like there's probably not desire to want to do it. It's a lot of work. And as he's gotten older, he's I think he's become the grumpy old guy in some capacities. Like if you kind of watch if you look at like stuff, the BPRD universe and Mike Mignola, right? He's not writing every book, but he's overseeing. He's kind of giving his flavor. He's giving notes to his co-writers and stuff to get it the way that it sells, to get it the way that he wants it in his universe or whatever. Like he is involved without doing all of the shoulder work, without doing all of the stuff or whatever. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if Hama's name was on this cover, I think it has a bigger selling point than Josh Williamson, even if Williamson is doing the writing and Hama is just doing the overseeing and the kind of like the points here and there to kind of course correct some of the stuff that doesn't fit with what was really selling back in the 90s. Well, and if Hama's in it, there's going to be two good fights in each book. So it's like, it's just generally how it is. That's the formula that works. Why mess with it? No, I know. And that's the thing. And I do believe that getting back to the origin and do it. And he's the guy that can direct that.
Although I think part of the issue maybe for him is how closely Hasbro is tied to this. Like I know in the most recent storyline, they're propping up characters from Mask. Like, oh, wow. I mean, as nostalgic
Mask had a crossover
is it worth using G.I. Joe's nostalgia to prop up a toy line 5 people care about? And I say that
they're doing those people are on this show right now.
Yeah, 5 people are on the show. They've been fighting for quite some time to put together a new storyline concept for Mask, and they did integrate Matt Tracker into G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
So they've already crossed the universes and made that something that actually functions. So I could see there's a cinematic approach to this, which is what they're trying to do is just onboard what Mask will cinematically be and to create some type of pre-fan following for a small franchise that really does have, look, if you weren't playing with, boy toys from, 83 to 86, you probably aren't much of a Mask fan. There's not a lot of new Mask fans getting made out of that. But
I mean, I think it's on its dying leg. I think it's going to be obsolete by the next decade. I really do. I'm not maybe not truly extinct. Like I think unless it has some type of like major movie, like successful adaptation, not the one that came out in like 2009. I'm talking like a true to form, like at its core type of adaptation of what it is, like at its core, exactly like cut to the meat of it all. Unless you get something like that, or maybe even if it's something set for streaming, I don't know, because it's just like outside of Transformers, the Michael Bay inspired type films, what has been truly relevant in the world of Transformers in the last several decades in other mediums, animation, comics? Like, I'm not saying that it hasn't existed, but what has really like had a pulse? Nothing. When you think of Transformers, you think of the movies, the live action, whether they're good, whether they suck. That's the most relevant it has really been, despite a lot of people still thinking Transformers is cool. And I wonder if like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will sometimes fall into it. Like, I feel like, how long are you going to be on life support before people just like truly show they don't care? Because I think we're closer to that than this being more so a nostalgic thing that has like a niche following.
There's a lot of comics that just limp along.
That's what I'm saying.
Because of the properties that are involved and because of the intellectual, I don't think it's ever going to go away. I'm sure that there's going to be like several reinventions and, but it's just not something they're just going to scrap and be like, all of those 50 years that we put into G.I. Joe, like, forget it. We're not doing anything with that anymore.
But the collectors and all of us may think that, but the people who work in the media side of it, all five of us, let's be real, it does nothing for us, essentially.
Right.
This is the most, we have been doing this podcast now, I don't know for how long. This is the most we have ever talked about G.I. Joe collectively, like if you accumulate it all, by far, this segment. So,
well, Brendan
I'll admit that
during
during the lockdown, I did actually buy a bunch of classified G.I. Joe figures, because it turns out I have a lot of affection for these characters, but do I need them in ongoing stories? I don't think I do, right? And
it's more of like a gem of the. It's more of a gem of the past, and I think on this show, one thing that we really do well, particularly on this segment, is kind of decipher and navigate through all that, because a lot of it shows that sometimes this is just fun to look back on, and then we conflate that with we need more of it. We could have more of it by reflecting on the past. That's the conundrum Star Wars is in. We want more and more Star Wars, but every time we get more Star Wars, new Star Wars, we say, how come you can't be like the old Star Wars? So it's one of those, like, never,
because nerds
like,
will never
things.
be satisfied. I was just talking to Eric about this before we started filming, because I'm doing the Fan Home 1989 Batmobile build, and there's information that's fascinating. And one of the things that I had forgotten about, but is a very real thing, is every time they cast Batman, people lose their absolute minds.
Oh, it's so polarizing.
You have an image of who Batman's supposed to be, and before they cast Michael Keaton, nobody would have pegged him as Batman. But then Tim Burton says a thing. Tim Burton says, look, man, if he was 8 feet tall with a muscular jaw and superpowers and whatever, he wouldn't need to wear a bulletproof suit and have all these gadgets. So let me tell you what this character is by casting this guy who can exist in both worlds, because when you put him in 2 inches of latex, he looks super ripped, but then when he's in a suit, he looks like some average rich guy. Like, that's the essence of the character boiled down. And it's like, everybody's going to lose their mind. You make a change, you make a casting. The only one that I don't like as Batman is Pattinson, because I'll never forgive him for that string of stupid movies he made. But every single time you have a new casting of Batman, people lose their absolute shit until it works. And then when it works, people are like, oh yeah, I was on board the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the benefit of hindsight. I mean, people acted like Affleck was the worst move ever. And I say what you want about the Zack Snyder movies, that was one of the redeeming qualities. That's, if you go back and watch any of the Snyderverse, DCEU films, he tends to be one of the highlights and one of the threads through it all that seems to be like a positive viewing experience. And I know, Pattinson was definitely, say what you want, like about like Brendan's take there, it seems funny, but when he was announced, that was the immediate thought. There's a lot of truth to that. Oh, what the hell? The guy from Twilight's going to be Batman?
Christian Bale is
people were hesitant.
Christian Bale is like 5'2".
Yeah.
Like, nobody would have pegged him as a superhero, but it works in the context of those films because of the ability to go between like being this nerdy little small guy at the parties or whatever to being the dude who's like got all the guns and all the stuff. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the dichotomy. And that's what's fun about the character.
Number one characters and number ones, Iron Man number one.
Yes.
That's
Iron Man number one.
Got another number one.
So a bold new era begins here, they say. This is the premiere issue of a character that's been around for, I don't know, 100 years. So the premiere issue, it's got Madam Mask and AIM in the first villain's arc, and there's a first appearance of somebody they're calling Citizen V, and I guess this has come up before because they say it's a new Citizen V. But the unapologetic Iron Man is a once-in-a-lifetime hero, but the beating heart behind the armor is a once-in-a-century genius. Years ago, Tony Stark was knocking on death's door, so he created the Iron Man armor to survive. Well, they're just recapping the film there.
Right.
What happens the next time death comes calling? What weapon does he create then? What if someone else creates it first? These questions have haunted Tony for years, a ticking time bomb inside of him waiting to explode. Femme fatale Madame Mask has also asked these questions, and with the power of advanced idea mechanics behind her, she's ready to create the next great weapon.
First off, for the record, because I love to do this to you whenever I get a chance to, Iron Man's been around 60 years, not 100. I just like to
You think I wasn't exaggerating when
like
Iron Man signed the Declaration of Independence?
No, the problem was
Tony
that
Stark
Paul
is right
was,
under there.
Paul's over there taking notes. He's been doing it for about 30 minutes. He's taking notes and he's writing all of this information
Diligently
because you're like giving him facts. And he's like, Iron Man, 100 years old.
But when was
Yes.
World War
I can't have him
I?
believe
Because
that.
that's when the character originated in storyline. So wasn't that about 100 years ago? I think it was.
Yeah, but beyond that now, beyond 100 years ago.
Yeah. So
We're in the roaring, 100 years ago, it was the roaring 20s.
Oh, of course, if you want the origin.
1916.
I
That's
get where
right.
you're
So it's
at.
more than 100 years old. So
Yeah, that's what I just said.
No, that's the origin of the character, not necessarily how long Iron
Well, I
Man.
just said so World War
Actually been
One.
around.
Yeah, World War One was over 100 years ago.
on
We are now in
playback,
the
you're going to
roaring 20s.
realize that I'm right as usual. And
No, it
that
was
you're
actually
just
over 60
blabbing.
years, and I did look it up to make sure that I can factually say this to you in front of you about you and to call it out. And the fact that I'm completely disinterested that there's another number one Marvel.
No, you have to classify what we're talking about. Are we talking about publishing or are we talking about canon?
He said Iron Man has
Yes.
been around for over 100 years.
And he
That's
has
technically
1916.
that's
No.
technically false.
That's his
It-
timeline, but not
yeah.
in our actual timeline.
Yeah.
So you're going to
that
argue
would-
You're doing that. You're
semantics
doing
It's
over
semantics. It's definitely semantics.
I'll tell you what.
kayfabe in real life, because everything we
Yes.
talk about here is made up. Every single thing we talk about here
Is
is
it a
made up.
worker? If it's
Wait,
a
this
worker,
is-
a shoot.
None of
That's
this
the-
is
that's the
real.
debate.
Oh, I quit. That's it.
Yeah, right. There you go. Now you live the life of an everyday pro wrestling fan for like the last 10 years.
I'll tell you what is real, and that's the 1 in 100 Pablo Villalobos. Is that how you say it?
Villalobos. Villalobos.
Yeah.
Okay.
House of the Wolves.
So
Virgin variant.
the other cover was cool, but I think that this one is much, much cooler. And the reason
Totally.
why is because this is an action sequence. You can tell that, there's a reactor or some fan or something behind them that's exploding. And the thing is when you look at this, there's really only like two colors here in different shades of the two colors. It's really like a red, orange, and a blue. And there's that whole like yin yang thing happening on the cover. This is just such a dynamic cover. And they're going to be rare because your local shop had to order 100 open order covers to get one of these in their store. So you're probably going to pay like $20-25 for this, but I think it's worth it. There's lots of great spots on there to sign, and it's such a gorgeous cover. You could get this slabbed or just frame it as is, and it'd make a beautiful piece in your collection.
It really matches like what you think of like visual tone and aesthetic with Iron Man. You think of metal, you think of heat, you think of lasers, you think of like melting, you think of like, blacksmith type stuff clanking down. Like that's what you get. It's like almost a radiant
That's good.
heat
You can
coming
hear
from the
this cover.
surroundings.
You can hear what's happening in it.
100%. Yeah, like there's a very like visceral type of like feel to it, like an intensity to it that isn't just really cool for the character as far as the visual pop. It really like that's what's even for the films, like even the cartoons. There's always been that element of like gritty, get your knuckles dirty to Iron Man, which is always what is so fun about the character because of the machinery and technology involved.
So, Paul, give us what is being heard from this cover.
Yes, the analysis. The
I think
audible
it's already-
analysis.
The audio, the oral analysis
Yes.
is. I think you guys already covered it. I hear clanking. I hear metal upon metal, like some kind of reactor.
Sparks. Yeah.
And Tony Sparks. That's right. No, Sparks.
Sparks flying. Yes, Tony
Sparks
Sparks.
flying.
That is his name.
Jordan's little brother.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in, it's blinding, and you don't want to be anywhere without an iron suit in
Right.
this anywhere near this vicinity.
Well, the question I think
No
is
doubt.
he coming in and out of a portal? Is he leaving or is he coming? Right?
I I think, or he's trying to keep someone out.
Yeah, like is he
He's
on the
defending
attack or is he
something.
on the defensive?
And it could also
Yep.
just be a coffee cup ring. Like when you set your
True.
coffee cup.
It's you can imagine the artist is sitting there like the ripple of their coffee, and they go,
Damn it. All right, just fill it in.
"All right, I got a background. I'm good."
Finish it up. Finish it up.
My latte. I got an extra pump. Power Rangers Prime number 14 is next. It's the first appearance of a new Ranger.
Yeah, for some reason they're introducing a second Red Ranger. So it says a mysterious Power Ranger arrives on the scene. The Prime Rangers face their biggest threat yet, and one of their own could be to blame. It's time for reunions as June returns from Eltar and Lauren comes closer than ever to discovering what happened to her family. But who is the second Red Ranger, and what does he want? And will Orion's and Rita's magical mischief bring Orion's past back to haunt him?
So it's funny because I have a little personal interest in this because of the relationship I have with Jason Font, who played Wes, the original Red Ranger from Time Force, right? So every time Power Rangers comes about and they talk about a Red Ranger, it's like a fraternity for those guys, right? And a fraternity to it. Almost always the first like introduction of a Power Ranger has almost always been in the cinematic side, right? TV shows, whatever it is. And so when you see one of the Rangers being introduced into a comic line, that's a little bit of a different twist for them, right? They've done it before, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't happen very often. So the fact that this is something that kind of stands out like that, I feel like this has a little bit more grounds to it. It's definitely going to excite the Power Ranger fans, and we should see the Power Ranger fans coming back in, a pretty good amount to want to find out information about this. So over a few weeks of the information in this episode, this issue getting leaked out, and all of that, once people kind of have an idea of what the origin of this character is, I think then you'll start seeing people come and kind of clamor for it. So I think this is a smart move by Boom Studios. That's what this is. Look, the Red Ranger is always the Ranger that's the most visible. I know the Green Ranger's always been the bad boy, right? And that's always had that appeal, and it's like the difference between Darth Vader and Boba Fett, right? They both exist. They both have their own followings. They both have their own thing. Boba Fett's more mysterious. The Red Ranger is the Red Ranger that kind of generally has a lot of say in everything that they do. So I think from the Power Ranger fan standpoint, I think this will be a very interesting addition to the comic book line for them.
Well, wasn't Tommy eventually a Red Ranger? I never watched much of it, so I only know his name because he was so ubiquitous. But didn't he eventually become the Red Ranger?
I think so. I'm gonna look really quick just because I want to know, but I think so. When did Tommy become the Red Ranger? In '97, Tommy served as the Green Ranger and then the White Ranger. From 93 to 95 as Zeo Ranger 5 Red on Power Rangers Zeo in 96 and in Red Turbo Ranger on Power Rangers Turbo 97. So that would give you the answer, which is Zeo and in Turbo were the two properties that Tommy ended up portraying the Red Ranger. And I guess that makes sense. I mean, look, any of the Rangers really could don the powers of the other Rangers. Because it's all about, their coins and being able to call their suit. So from that standpoint, I can see it. I think that this is a great way to do it. And two, on a franchise that hasn't done a lot to like really reinvent itself, to go ahead and bring us something, something new for the franchise. The Power Rangers is big. It always is big. Every fan convention you go to that has Power Rangers guests, they're always signing, they're always busy, they always have things going on. So I think this will be good for the franchise. I think this will be good, and I like the cover. I think the cover's cool. I don't know if this is a sidekick that we're seeing here, or if this is actually the version of the Red Ranger that's going to be.
That's a weird looking helmet. That's not a very functional. Yeah. I mean, most of them have visors on them that they can see through. This looks like some kind of robot or whatever. You see the cogs and the wiring and stuff. I don't think that's the mask.
No, this looks kind of like a sidekick. It almost looks like a Mouser from TMNT. Right? Like the way it's shaped.
The crossover nobody asked for.
The crossover that no one asked for. Although they have done some crossovers, right?
With TMNT and Power Rangers?
And
I think
Oh,
so.
you know what?
yeah, they have.
Maybe. Have they?
I think
Yeah.
so.
So it'll be cool. You know, it's funny. Let's talk about a crossover now, and that is Gargoyles and Darkwing Duck #1.
They've done 2 already. Number 3 is 6 months late. But anyway, okay, yeah. So Darkwing Duck and Gargoyles, these are both Saturday morning cartoons from when I was growing up. Disney afternoon animated shows meet for the first time in a brand new title created by both series' original authors. So the thing about this is we were talking about why doesn't Hama write all of the G.I. Joe stories? The original writers from the show are getting together to write this. So it's very much going to be in the flavor of Disney afternoon. This is a long solicit. After contacting a wary Morgana Macabre through her magic mirror, the scheming Demona whisks the uncooperative sorcerer out of St. Canard into her New York City lair, where she proceeds to grill Morgana for the location of a certain mystical tome with enough eldritch energy to allow Demona to finally conquer the world. I'm not reading the whole rest of this because it's long, but yeah, so the baddies are getting together through a magic mirror, which is going to bring the goodies together. This looks like it's going to be fun and just nostalgic, whatever, for people in their late 40s. But yeah, the cover looks very much in the flavor of the old show, and the writers mean, because it's the original writers, mean it's very much going to be written the way the old show was written. So it's very much targeted at people like me who are buying this for their kids to try and be like, see, we had cool shows.
I didn't watch Gargoyles a lot, but from what I recall, Gargoyles was never like funny.
Yeah,
What is funny
it was more of a dramatic thing where Darkwing was.
Is Brett muted?
Batman parody, right?
Totally was.
That's what I was going to point out, was
Rookie
the fact
mistake.
that I was going to let him go because
Rookie mistake, just puking without any audio. No, absolutely though. No, Steve says, and Erik was just even kind of pointing it out. It was more dark. It was more brooding. It was more serious. It had some like little like comic relief here and there if it was necessary, and actually had a whole lot of sexual tension as well. For at least for a cartoon of that caliber, it had an edge to it, and it was a really really cool show. But at the same time,
tension in Gargoyles.
Definitely. There was an element. Maybe that tension's the wrong word. There was definitely an element of like I'm not even gonna say it was erotic, but there was an edge to it. You know, like you could tell there was a dynamic between female and male characters on that show. Like Bruce Timm's Justice League shows. There's a sexual element between those characters, and it's still a kid's show. But it's doing it properly because in the Justice League, I mean, let's be real. There you go. There's a lot of intermingling and canoodling going on. So ultimately, it kind of tapped into that. But what Erik said, Darkwing Duck's completely different. Darkwing Duck kind of spins off the whole DuckTales, Scrooge McDuck universe that became a whole brand in the '90s. Really.
Are you
For
sure?
the lack of a better phrase, I'm gonna let
dangerous. Yes.
And send it to Paul Vato. And Paul, real quick before you get started, I would like to know, could you give me the definition of canoodling?
Mm-hmm.
Please.
Sure.
Canoodling.
Interacting.
Not the definition from Kama Susia, please.
While noodling on your guitar, you can canoodle with another individual, with maybe some heavy petting. But I think
stroking.
I think Brett was maybe watching the Triple X parody, Gargoyles and Dickwing.
So I looked up the Batman actors because I couldn't think of. Everybody should know at this point I'm terrible with names because I broke my skull a few years ago. I can't remember names so good. So I pulled up all the Batman actors, and what's hilariously included in this list of actors is Dale DeBone from the Triple X parody of Batman. And it's like, for all the people who have ever played Batman, like to see that name on there, it's so bizarre. But it's like, well, I guess legitimately he did play Batman. I mean, that's what the character was.
And that's what I love too, because if you go down enough rabbit holes, you're gonna start. I mean, like if you look at Spider-Man, does that include Supeda Man, the Japanese version? Because you kind of have to, right? I mean, if anyone has seen that, you know what I'm talking about. That's all I'm gonna say.
But like,
I didn't anticipate that this would.
What
go
I was reminded of looking at this list too, of all the characters who have played Batman is actually of the modern Batman actors.
Yeah.
I had Robert Pattinson as my worst, but I forgot that Val Kilmer had played Batman at one point, and that was
so did George Clooney.
George Clooney was not believable at Batman.
No.
I genuinely think Clooney is the worst.
I do too. I think George Clooney, it's actually funny. Clooney was a decent Bruce Wayne, terrible Batman. Kilmer was a decent Batman as far as how he looks in the suit, but a god-awful Bruce Wayne. Like, you could not believe Kilmer. And I love Val Kilmer. Like, he was one of my favorite actors of that era.
The Clooney Batman, my take on that is I feel like he just came in and stole the bat suit. Some random dude who stole the bat suit, and they made a movie around him.
Yeah,
and then they put a guy in tights and let him run around with him the whole movie.
And then let Arnold Schwarzenegger just make a billion puns about ice.
Really quick, just to stay on theme and on brand and everything. Let's talk about Escape from Skull Island #1.
Okay, so I'm excited about this one, mainly because I love King Kong. My buddy Anton is going to argue that King Kong is not the king of the monsters, but he did beat Godzilla's ass, and I want to point that out.
No,
because
he
that
didn't.
is canon. That is canon. It happens.
It happens. The 1960 Japanese one?
It happens. King Kong beat the shit out of that big lizard. Anyway,
Godzilla worked him, knocked him out. The writers even confirmed Godzilla won. You Kong fanboys can't accept that. And radioactive
Brett,
lizard,
this is my segment. This is my segment.
Your boy.
It's
a Brett and Allen show.
This is my segment.
It's the Brett and Allen show. It's the Brett and Allen show.
Proceed. Corner.
Talk about your B tier monster. Go ahead.
Yes. No. So the monster who beat Godzilla's ass. This is an official continuation of the Skull Island animated series. So again, this is an animated series. It's now a comic book.
The Chiefs won the Super Bowl too, if you want to break canon, But anyway,
trapped on Skull Island, a desperate band of survivors struggles against the land's relentless horrors while an ancient threat rises from below. But as chaos unfolds, flashbacks reveal Kong's turbulent youth, his battles, losses, and the primal instincts that shaped him into the island's sovereign. Sovereign. Do they ever say that about gods? I don't think they do. Now, as hordes of monstrous beasts close in on the stranded humans, the most dangerous enemy of all regains strength to once more challenge Kong's throne. This is going to be a dope-ass series.
Godzilla is the king of the friggin' monster world. They all bow to Godzilla. Kong's separate off on his little. Anyway, go ahead. On his vacation home.
You should meet Anton sometime because we have this argument all the time.
Oh, me too. You're like my buddy Frank. You're like my buddy Frank. I love Kong. Don't be wrong. I'm just, as a sportscaster, I have to accept results and analyze the results. I'm just analyzing the results. Had the screenwriter scripted Kong to win, I would have yielded to that. Anyway, go ahead. I do love the Monsterverse, though. The Monsterverse rules.
The 1962 Japanese film King Kong versus Godzilla, who won?
That's not what we're referring to. Is this not a spin-off of the, like, I know it's not the actual Monsterverse, like the actual brand, but this is not referring to the Toho film either. It depends on what you define as canon. If you define the Monsterverse,
King Kong Monsterverse.
When you ask the question, has Joker ever defeated Batman? You're going to look at the entire canon. You're not going to look at like just the latest film.
But at the same time, the latest film is like what Erik just said is what this is actually tapping into. I'm pretty sure this is referring to the
tapping into an animated series, but it's part of the canon.
But the animated series is the Skull Island. Erik, is Skull Island a Monsterverse
For the
series?
last 50 years, Godzilla has been trying to resave face from the 1962 beatdown that he received at the hands of this ape.
And he already did in 2021 when he put this ape on his back and literally won the fight. That wasn't
a knockdown. That was a slip, and you know it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's classic Sugar Ray, Dickie Eklund. No, but honestly, what you're saying is actually true. In the 1962 version, King Kong definitely got the win. I just don't know what like realm this is into because I just feel like it was because Skull Island was never a huge.
I just love that there's enough merit to the idea that you can have honest like real discussions about it.
Oh, bro, remember leading up to it? It was like a prize fight. It was freaking awesome. The build up to the 2021 film was great. And I really just love what they're doing with the Monsters. I think King Kong is absolutely awesome. I love the
strength of the franchise. Godzilla works so much better as a mysterious kaiju because
100%.
He's a reptile, because he can live underwater, because he can do all these things, whereas Kong has to be transported places.
Yes.
He can't go underwater to just go across the ocean to get to a different continent. So you have limitations when you're talking about a giant ape versus a giant lizard thing that can swim and has gills and
who's like thousands and millions of years old or whatever, prehistoric, and has radioactive powers. And another thing I like about Kong that the Monsterverse movies do very well, and don't get me wrong, the 30s version is iconic set. cinema. The Jeff Bridges version with Jessica Lange I like a lot. That's fun too. But the cool thing about the MonsterVerse Kong, the human interest aspects of the entire like storyline really is driven through Kong, because Godzilla is kind of just like, you know, an omnipresent force. Kong is the buffer of it all as far as the human emotions. That's why I really like his character.
The scary thing for me about Kong is that Kong is an ape, and he's a great ape. And as a great ape, he's got that you know, frontal lobe development or whatever. Whereas you know, Godzilla has always been like the enforcer of the universe, right? Because it's supposed to be like the after 100%. Effects of radiation and things like that. 100%. But he's still very much driven by a lizard brain, whereas Kong is thinking and reasoning and falling in love and doing the stuff. And it's like
100%.
That's scarier to me, because there is the capability for rational thought.
100%. That's actually perfectly said, because that's the one thing I think the MonsterVerse movies do very well. It's like, regardless of who's more powerful, Kong is almost more a better protector of the earth, because Godzilla is more like, if the humans get in my way, I'll destroy you too. Kong will actually take steps to actually be productive, because he can
Godzilla
in a way
is
communicate
swatting
with
flies.
100%. Godzilla's like, if you get in my way, you'll be a thorn in my side. I'll do you the same way I did Ghidorah. So that's actually a great analysis. This is actually fun. I wish we talked about kaiju more on this show. I really do.
I think there's one more concept here to think of, though, which is one of them is conscious of their mortality, and the other one thinks that they're immortal.
100%.
And Godzilla thinks he's immortal. So to me, he's the bigger, you know, the bigger monster of them all, because he just doesn't know,
which is why
he won't win, so he'll never stop.
When you put an 18-year-old rookie in, you know, in the bottom of the ninth of a perfect game, is because they don't understand the gravity of the situation that they're in, and they think they're immortal, and so they're just going out there to get a dinger, not realizing that history is on the line.
Yeah, swing, absolutely.
Well, speaking of history being on the line, this show's about to be history, and so that means it's time for Paul Vato to go ahead and tell us about all the great things that he has going on, what he's been up to.
Paul,
don't know if he's in Chicago, not in Chicago. I mean, honestly, let's be fair, guys. Do you guys care?
I do. I do. Chicago. Paul, you're not a football fan, but damn it, Chicago's a good place to be right now, because the future is bright. And in the sports culture, you haven't been able to say that in a long time.
Good, better, best. We don't let it rest, man.
Okay.
Chicago is number one. I was proud of my Chicago Bears.
Yep.
Maybe I am to sports when it's self-serving and hometown teams. What an incredible season. And you're right, the future does look bright. It's so bright, I got to wear shades. So add that, free hot dogs over at the Wiener Circle whenever the Bears were winning, whenever Ben Johnson took his shirt off, all great things. They brought so much excitement to the city. It was amazing.
I guess the rule of thumb is to never be a jerk in the Wiener Circle, right?
Yes, or sometimes you can just walk in and catch the wrath of Pookie. You know, sometimes you do nothing but stall a little bit, and they're going to yell at you. Some people go in there for that. You know, they're glad.
Absolutely.
I was told that Paul takes a group there often.
I do, without letting them know what to expect. I do have a good story, but which I think is best left for Patreon, because of how a friend who took another friend there. He was on tour with J5, Jurassic 5, the band, and he took one of his maybe the DJ.
I love how he says it's better for Patreon, and then just continues telling it on regular.
Brendan, that's where we actually leave for real.
All right, but yeah, more about me. Hey, enough about you guys. Not more about me and what I've been up to. I was just at Podfest promoting C3POD. So if you want to send any funds, that's great. But more importantly, I was there also to promote my Vato coin, my Kamasusia. Hello?
No, I told you last week, the shrimp chow mein.
Don't you guys want to hear about Vato coin at vatocoin.com and Kamasusia at kamasusia.com? You know what? Just go to paulvato.com.
No, this is unacceptable.
Wait, guys, I thought I was going to get a chance to finally promote after 18 episodes of the C3POD. I still don't get a chance to talk about what I'm up to. The only reason I keep coming back week after week, a brutal week, just so I can maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that I've done.
No, bump the line.